Welcome to Powercoat Music. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about the AKAI MPK88 USB MIDI performance keyboard and why and how I use it. Many people struggle with controlling and coordinating the MIDI gear in their home studios. One reason is because they use various gear to control other gear with no centralization whatsoever. If a MIDI keyboard controller doesn't include the onboard features you need to manage and control the MIDI devices in your home studio, then it may not be worth the time of day, in my humble opinion. When I compose, I need the power and the flexibility to control various types of MIDI gear in different ways from one place. I can't keep getting up and moving from spot to spot because it kills my cadence and my creativity. Now the MPK88, its ground up MIDI-centric functionality allows me to control my synthesizers, sound modules, drum machines, digital recorders, and more. This unit is a professional performance keyboard controller with music production controls. Now these are also referred to as MPC controls. The MPK88 is based on the design of the popular MPK49 and MPK61 keyboards, which are the first keyboards that had MPC pads as a feature. In this presentation, we're going to talk about the MPK88's features, its technical specifications, the front panel functions, the back panel features, and the unit's different modes of operation. Let's talk about the AKAI MPK88's features. Unlike other MIDI synthesizers, the AKAI MPK88 is designed from the ground up to be a MIDI controller. It has 88 keys and it's fully weighted, has hammer action keyboard with aftertouch. There's 12 genuine MPC pads with pressure and velocity sensitivity. The MPC pads access 4 banks, each for instant access of up to 48 samples. It has assignable Q-Link controller section for flexible control of most software parameters. There's 8 Q-Link virtual knobs, 8 Q-Link virtual faders, and 8 Q-Link virtual buttons. The key split enables control of 2 different sounds from the same keyboard. It has dedicated transport controls for tracking and editing. The MPC Note Repeat, MPC Swing, and Arpeggiator, aids in the creative process. MPC Full Level, MPC 12 Level, Tap Tempo, and Time Division Assist with Tempo and Dynamics are also available. We have MIDI output over USB, it's bus powered, it's class compliant via plug and play with one USB cable. It works with most MIDI recording, sequencing, and performance software. Let's move on to the AKAI MPK88's technical specifications. Here you can see all of the specs for the unit, starting with the display and moving to the power specs. Also the number of presets, which is 30. We have our output channels over USB. We have 48, which is 16 by 3 ports. Our MIDI output channels from the 5-pin DIN, of course, are 16. And we move on then to our keyboard specs. We also have the specs for the MPK61 as well as the MPK88. We have 16 velocity and pressure sensitive drum pads. Our drum pad banks consist of 4. Our faders are 8 360-degree knobs. That's just basically the knobs on the unit. We have 8 of those dedicated. We also have 8 switches. The accessories include a quick start guide, an operator's manual, a USB cable, and a CD-ROM disc. Last but not least are the inputs and outputs. Of course, we have in our MIDI inputs, we have 1 and also 1 MIDI output. We have a USB connector and also a DC in for our power supply. Let's move on to an overview of the front panel. First, we have our blue liquid crystal display, or LCD display, and it's used for navigating menus, displaying data, and changing options and parameters. Next, we have our value dial. Now this dial is used to increment and decrement presets, parameter values, and settings. This dial also functions as an enter button if you push it. What follows is the back and forward buttons. These are used to navigate through the fields of menus and options. The back button also functions as a cancel button. Then we have our preset, which calls up our preset mode. You can select and recall different preset programs in this mode. Next, we have our edit, which of course calls up edit mode. This allows you to edit the behavior of the keyboard's pads, knobs, buttons, sliders, and default settings for each preset. Moving on, we have our global setting. Now this calls up the global mode where MIDI reset commands and global system preferences are set. Next, we have our preview. This allows you to see what value will be sent by a controller without actually sending the value. It gives exact control over your parameters and helps avoid the wrong controller data being sent to your devices due to a physical position of the controller. What follows is the program change. Now this will enter, of course, program change mode. In this mode, you can send a program change or program with bank change messages to a hardware or software module. What follows are our transport control buttons. This button group is dedicated for sending transport control commands. The transport control buttons can be set to transmit either MMC, which is MIDI machine control, or MIDI sysx messages, along with MIDI start, stop, or pre-assigned MIDI control change values. Then we have our 8 assignable knobs. Now each are 360-degree knobs, and they can be used to send continuous control data to a desktop audio workstation, a DAW, or another external MIDI device. Then we have our 8 assignable sliders. Each slider can be used to send continuous control data to a DAW, a desktop audio workstation, or an external MIDI device. What follows are our 8 assignable buttons. These buttons can be used as MIDI control change switches or program change switches. Next, we have our control bank. The unit features 3 independent banks of continuous controllers. This allows you to control up to 72 independent parameters with knobs, sliders, and buttons. The control bank button is used to switch among the 3 banks. The LEDs above the buttons will reflect the currently selected control bank. Moving on, we have our MPC pressure and velocity sensitive pads. Now the pads can be used to trigger drum hits or samples on your software or hardware module. They're pressure and velocity sensitive. Moving on, we have our pad bank buttons. These 4 buttons switch among the pad banks, which are A, B, C, and D. Each bank can address a unique set of 16 sounds, giving you access of up to 64 different sounds that you can trigger with the pads. The currently selected pad bank will be indicated on the LCD display. Next is full level. When full level is activated, the pad always plays back at a maximum velocity, which is 127, no matter how hard or soft you hit them. Next is 16 level. Now when 16 level is activated, you can use the pads to change a selected sound's velocity in 16 steps. The following then is the note repeat. Holding down this button while striking a pad causes the pad to re-trigger at a rate based on the current tempo and time division settings. Then we have our split functionality. The split functionality divides the keyboard into left and right sections, which is going to be your A and your B. This allows you to control 2 different sets of sounds simultaneously. Now when split's activated, its LED will light up. Next is our time division functionality. This is used to specify the rate of the note repeat and the arpeggiator features. When this is activated, you can press one of the 8 switches to specify a time division. Now, time division can function as a momentary or toggle button. The following then is the ARP on and off. This enables and disables the internal arpeggiator. Now, the arpeggiator will only function when notes are being played on the keyboard. The arpeggiator feature on the MPK61 and the MPK88 works in conjunction with the tempo and time division settings, which specify the rate of arpeggiation. What follows is then the latch function. This works in conjunction, of course, with the arpeggiator. When the arpeggiator is turned on and the latch has been enabled, you can hold down a combination of keys and the arpeggiator will memorize and continue to arpeggiate these notes even if you depress the keys. I love that. Then, moving on, we have the octave buttons. Now, these buttons can be used to shift the keyboard's range up and down, and the display will indicate which octave you have shifted to. If both buttons are pressed at the same time, the octave shift will reset to 0. Next, we have the tap tempo. This button allows you to tap in a new tempo. Moving on, we have the pitch bend wheel. This transmits MIDI pitch bend information on a selected MIDI channel and port. And then finally, we have the modulation wheel. This wheel can be used to transmit continuous controller data. By default, the modulation wheel will transmit MIDI control change message number 1. Let's review the back panel of the AKAI MPK88. First, we have our DC power input. You can plug in a 6-volt 1A DC power adapter if the unit is not being powered by USB. Next, we move on to our USB connection. You can plug in a standard USB cable into this outlet and then into the USB port of your computer. The computer's USB port will provide power to the unit if it's plugged in. This connection is used to send and receive MIDI data to and from your computer and may also be used to send MIDI data from your computer to a device attached to the MIDI out port. What follows then is our MIDI out port and then our MIDI in port. Then we have the foot switch inputs. You can connect a 1/4-inch TS foot switch to either of these inputs. Then we have the expression pedal input. You can connect a 1/4-inch TRS expression pedal to this input. And then last but not least, we have a Kensington connection lock, which allows you to attach the keyboard to the surface that you have it resting on currently. Now we'll move on to the modes. The MPK61 and the MPK88 have 4 different modes of operation. Each mode can be accessed by pressing one of the corresponding buttons. The first is the preset. This mode allows you to load, save, and copy presets. A preset is a collection of information about how different sliders, knobs, and pads will behave. The next is the edit mode. This mode allows you to edit the configuration of the unit. This is a tool for customizing your setup. Now, in this mode, you can make changes to how the keyboard pads, knobs, and sliders and other features function. Then we have the global mode. Now, in this mode, it allows you to set global parameters and make general changes to how your unit is functioning. And then last but not least, we have the program change mode, which allows you to transmit various program change messages. Now, in this mode, you can tell your DAW, your digital audio workstation, or an external MIDI device to switch to a different program bank of sounds without having to do it manually. In summary, along with my MIDI patch bays, the MPK88 is one of the 2 main MIDI pillars of my home studio that turns what would otherwise be MIDI chaos into productivity and greatly lowers my frustration and stress levels. If you have a lot of different MIDI gear in your home studio and you're frustrated as I was and struggled to control all of these devices centrally, you should consider adding a MIDI master controller to your setup. Well, my friends, that is a wrap. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up and click the subscribe button on your screen now to join our group. We have new videos coming out around every 7 to 10 days, and we would love to have you be a part of our team. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let us know how you feel about this video. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. While you're here, listen to some of the music, watch some of the other videos, let us know what you think about that too. We thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you soon.